Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to My Hero Academia Season 5, Episode 3. So yeah, another episode, another week, and hopefully some more actual plot. We got a bit of it last time, but last time was very much just setup. Setup with One for All and All for One. Setup with Endeavor, with Hawks, with Dobby, with all of this stuff. It's just setup. It's building up to what this, at least first half of the season, this first arc for season 5 is going to cover. And I'm definitely interested, but I want to see more actually happen. Now, I do know, because of someone who already posted their reaction to this, I do know something about this episode. Granted, it's not a huge spoiler because I already knew this was going to happen due to the opening, but I do know that something is happening in here. I'm not gonna say it. Just in case anyone's watching along with me, I'm not gonna say it. So when it comes up in the reaction, I'll mention it then, and I'll talk about it then, and probably talk about it a little more in the afterthoughts. But yeah, someone's thumbnail and video titles spoiled this. And again, I knew about this because of the opening. The opening makes it pretty clear. But I really wish people didn't do that. Like, I really wish reactors didn't do that with their titles and stuff. Like, with a show that's older or something, like, sure. When you're reacting to something that's older and that it's well past the limit for worrying about spoilers, then fine. But when it's a new thing, like a brand new season of something that's just coming out, don't do that. Don't spoil things. And again, granted, this is not a big thing because of the opening already telling us. But for some people, they might not watch the openings. I know for some anime, there are people who don't watch the openings just to avoid spoilers, because there are some anime where the openings spoil a lot, if you actually pay attention. There are some people who don't watch the openings because of that. There are people who don't watch trailers for that reason. So I just wish reactors wouldn't do that. That's one of the reasons why none of my videos, none of my reactions have like a little like catchy title in, well, a catchy little line in the title. Like, oh, this happens in this episode. For example, let's just use the first episode as an example. Like, I wouldn't use something like Heroes versus Big Three as like a little catchy like descriptor of the episode, or something in the episode. I wouldn't do that. I just put in, ReDirect My Hero Academia Season 5 Episode 1 blind reaction. I tell you what the video is rather than what happens in it. And I give a little bit of like my thoughts on something or whatnot in the description, a little flavor text there, but that's about it. And again, I do this so that people who are just casually scrolling through YouTube and might see this and haven't seen the episode yet aren't spoiled. And that's why I also try to avoid spoilers with my thumbnails. If something really big happens, I usually will not put it in the thumbnail. I'll keep the thumbnail to stuff that it's like either just like, okay, a character, a shot of a character, or maybe something that everybody already knew was coming based on the episode before or whatnot. But I try to avoid heavy spoilers with my thumbnails because I've seen thumbnails from other reactors that really spoil big shit. And it's annoying to me. And again, if it's for a much older series or whatnot, it's not as big of a deal because it's like, oh, this series came out 10 years ago. You don't have to worry as much about spoilers for that. It'll still suck for someone who's new to watching it, but it's not as big of a deal because the series is like, what, 10 years old? Just as an example, years old or whatever. If it's older like that, even if it's just like a year old at this point, that's fine. But if it's a new, currently airing series, even if it's a new season to a series that's been going on, if it's currently airing and stuff, don't do that. That's all I'm saying here. I know I'm going on kind of a rant about this, but that's always irritated me. And I admit, there have been times in the past on old channels when I was first doing reactions where I did stuff like that. I admit that. But I've also grown past that, and I acknowledge that I was being very hypocritical because of my own dislike for spoilers. And I've worked past that. I've been trying my best to avoid that. Um, so yeah, it's honestly, I think just common courtesy. And again, especially for stuff that's currently airing. If it's older, then you can get away with it a little better. But still, don't try to be like a jerk about it. Don't try to like spoil the biggest twists or whatever. Um, if it's older, you can get away with it more. Like that's one thing. I'll be okay with that. But again, the currently airing stuff, don't do that. Do not do that. Um, don't give any big spoilers in your thumbnails or your titles. Um, so anyways, let's actually talk a little bit more about this before we go in. So yeah, like I said, just kind of briefly rolling through it all, we got a lot of setup last time that's going to definitely build into this season and possibly beyond. Because I don't see everything that they have been building up with the with the end of the first episode and now the second episode. I don't see it all coming to a head in this season. Maybe a little bit of it will, or not this season, but this arc. Maybe a little bit of it will, but with what this arc seems to be focused on based on the opening, I don't think it's going to be that big. I mean, it's probably still going to be very good, and there's probably going to be a few big things that happen. But I feel like a lot of this setup is for even more of the future, and that they're going to continue to spread those breadcrumbs throughout this arc, while having them come to a head in either the next arc or even further in the future, maybe. That's just my guess, though, because I just feel like that's where it's headed at the moment. I feel like this arc is going to be kind of a just a softer arc. Which I mean, technically, the last arc we got was pretty soft too in terms of its content. There wasn't a lot of big stuff that happened there either, but this one still is. I feel like is going to be important for the characters and their growth rather than the overall big story at hand. Um, though there will probably still be again breadcrumbs and little bits of big stuff scattered throughout to kind of build it up still. That's just my view on it though. I don't know if I'm going to be right or wrong, but we'll have to see. I'm definitely excited to go further into this and see exactly what we have in store. Um, and yeah, uh, just right before we get this started, I just want to say, going back to the entire spoiler thumbnail thing, whatever, if any of you ever catch me doing that for a currently airing series or whatnot, like putting something that's too spoilery in the thumbnail or even in the description, the flavor text in the description, please let me know. Please call me out on that shit. I want you to call me out on that shit because I might make a mistake here and there. I might mess up. I fully acknowledge that. And if I do, please let me know. I try my hardest, but if I ever make that mistake, just let me know. I try not to, but it's very possible I could. Um, Usually with the flavor text in the description, I try to keep it vague if I can. But yeah, just let me know. Anyways, enough on that. We're going to get into the reaction now. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below and follow the link to the reaction. After you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this was a very good episode and a very good start to what seems to be a focus for this arc. And we did get a little bit more of the build up, the general, the stuff that was built up last episode, the stuff that was shown as kind of like this. Not how do I word it? I'm terrible at wording things. You guys know that. Um, but just kind of like all of the stuff that was being worked on to progress towards the future with the big story and everything. We got a little more of it this time with Deku telling All Might about the quote unquote dream and everything that happened in it. And yeah, we didn't really get any answers, which I actually like because this kind of thing is even new to All Might. They did talk about the singularity though, and brought up something I had actually forgotten about the entire quirk singularity thing. So yeah, that was mentioned before. I'm trying to remember who mentioned it. It was mentioned in one of the previous seasons, but I can't for the life of me remember who it was that brought it up. I could possibly look it up as long as I don't like see any spoilers for it. So, quirk singularity theory. Okay, I found out what episode it's first brought up in. It was episode 80, which was episode 17 of last season. So it was last season, yeah. Okay, here we go. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it was Shishikura during the entire provisional training and all. It was Shishikura from Shiketsu High who brought it up. The meatball guy. I hate that that's his quirk, by the way. Um, but yeah, he brought it up, and it was almost kind of like a thing in passing, like it wasn't like made this big deal out of. But I kind of wondered if that would be brought back, like, and now it is, and it's like I wonder if that is what was being talked about, and if so, where is this going to go? Because that's definitely an interesting aspect of this all. But the fact that All Might doesn't even know about a lot of this. I mean, like, yeah, he experienced the same kind of thing with the Vestiges, but to the point where Deku was like actually able to communicate with the first like that's new. There's new stuff happening with Deku, and that's fascinating. Then you have then you have the entire thing with All for One, and it's just like I feel like much more is going to be expanded on that in the future, because I feel like we're only getting like a very brief glimpse at a lot of this stuff right now. That's why I mentioned that this was kind of like we're being fed the breadcrumbs, but the whole loaf is coming in the future. Um, God, I'm a fat ass. My mind goes to food metaphors, but in all seriousness, but that I mean breadcrumbs. People have used that before, and it's a valid thing here. We're being given these little bits of information, just enough to satisfy us, enough to whet our appetites, to give us something, while all this more minor stuff, honestly, is going on in terms of the overall story. I mean, it's still good stuff and it's still stuff we want to see, but in terms of the overall story, it's kind of minor. But we're being fed this little bit of information here to get us excited for what is to come when the bigger aspects of that are revealed. And yeah, I think that's definitely the biggest appeal about where this is heading. Um, so we then have the actual core meat of this episode. Shinso is wanting to transfer to the hero course. We've known this. He's been wanting to. So the teachers are putting him through what seems to be a kind of test, you could say. Class A and Class B are going to be facing off in a hero villain mock battle situation. We've done this kind of thing before with just Class A, but now we're integrating both classes into it. Um, so Shinso is coming in as kind of a wild card. He's going to join, there's going to be a bunch of different mock battles between teams of 4 on each side. And Shinso's going to join one team on Class B for one of the battles and one team on Class A for one of the battles. And it's just, it was brought up that it leads to a bit of an advantage disadvantage situation, because with Shinso joining in, one of the teams in that mock battle will have 5 instead of 4. So it leads to a bit of an advantage in terms of numbers. But Shinso is also less experienced in the hero role than everyone else there. So it also can lead to a bit of a disadvantage, with his inexperience possibly causing problems for his team. And at the same time, only 4 members of the team have to be captured. So with a team of 5, in Shinso's case, not all members of his team actually need to be captured, and that leads to a different dynamic as well. So it leads to a lot of interesting possibilities for what's going to happen. And I don't know if we're going to see every single battle in this thing. I think it's probably only going to focus on the 2 that Shinso is involved in. We're starting off right away with one of them, with Shinso in Class A's. And yeah, it's going to be interesting because, like, right off the bat, we see that Class B is not playing around. Um, and Class A already is having 2 notable issues with Kaminari and why am I blanking on his name? Holy shit. ReDirect. My mind is completely blanking, and I don't know why. I've never had trouble remembering his name. Doesn't it begin with a K as well? Like Kaminari? Hiroshima. That's it. Hiroshima. I don't know why my mind blanked on his name there. But with Kaminari Hiroshima, Kaminari had the issue with having faced Ibara before and being very concerned about facing her again because of her power. He acknowledges how strong she is, but also shows maybe a little bit of timidness now in terms of facing her again. Kirishima, on the other hand, has this thing about fighting a girl here, which almost seems weirdly out of place. Like, I don't think Kirishima's ever shown that kind of thing before. I mean, yeah, Kirishima has this thing about manliness and chivalry to a point, yeah. But I've never really gotten that from him. So that felt a little weird, admittedly. I guess I get it, but at the same time, like I said in the reaction, you cannot think about it like that. In the field, when they're working as heroes, they're going to come across female villains. And you can't think about it as you're fighting a girl. If you think about it that way, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get other people hurt. You're just creating more danger. When you're facing off against someone, whether in a mock battle like this or a real battle, you have to take it seriously. Just like with what happened with the first episode of this season. Like what the big three, or well, minus Mirio because he was playing a victim, with what Nejire and Tamaki were saying, you have to take it seriously. You can't hold back. When Deku held back against Tamaki because he didn't want to hurt him, like as Tamaki said, not following through can be fatal. It's a mock battle, but even in that situation, you have to take it seriously. You have to treat them as if they are your enemy. If you do not do that, you are possibly putting yourself and others in danger. If it was a real situation and you did that, it would be bad. And you can't just say like, "Oh, in a real situation, I wouldn't do that." If you're willing and able to do that in this mock battle situation, anything could make that happen in a real life situation too. You have to be prepared to do what it takes. And like I said in the first episode reaction, that's where Bakugo was exceptionally right. um, but here we have to really focus on and address the aspects of that, because you cannot view your opponents that way here. Whether as a friend, as a fellow student, as a girl, you cannot view them like that in this kind of situation. And you see that right away when the Beast guy, I don't remember his name, and it's with characters like this who you don't see often, it's hard to, at least for me, to remember their names as easily. Like certain ones are a little easier, like Kendo and Monoma and Shinso, because they stand out a lot more. But this like Beast guy, for example, it's like we haven't seen much of him, and while he stood out more notably in this episode, it's just been this episode where he has. So it's like I haven't connected with his character enough to really remember his name yet. But anyways, we see it when he first comes out, and he goes straight into the attack in his beast mode, and it's like, holy shit. He just like basically just appears and starts beasting on them, and it's amazing. But that's how you have to handle this. And he understands that. And they even used their opponents' ideas to their advantage by understanding exactly what their opponents were going to think, how they were going to attack, what they were going to wait for. So they used Ibara kind of as a decoy in order to have him sneak in closer, as well as the air shield guy. And that was a just fantastic job, honestly, from them. But you see instantly that you can't just hold back. You have to go all in, because your opponents are not necessarily going to have that issue. So yeah, you can't hold back here. But then Shinso shows a new ability. So this mask he has, I was wondering, what is this mask going to do? Is it just part of his hero costume? Is it just something that he's kind of doing for aesthetics? Or is there an actual purpose to it? How does it help with his quirk? Because as I was saying in the reaction, his quirk has a very specific trigger. It's a very specific trigger, and if your opponents know what that trigger is, then it's going to be hard to actually get them to, well, trigger it. It's going to be hard to get them to fall into your trap enough to be able to, well, handle that situation. For someone whose quirk isn't based on some kind of physical attribute or some kind of like powered ability that allows him to use it in combat extremely well, he has to figure out ways around that. And so, probably with help from the support course, I would assume, he had this mask built. And we see here that he can mimic other people's voices. And it's not quite revealed yet how it's done. Does he need to hear someone speak and he uses the mask to kind of record that voice, and then he kind of like can speak through the mask and it comes out in that voice? Or is it something else? That first kind of option there is like, that's what I would think it would be. It's just like he records someone's voice, the mask analyzes it, and allows him to speak using that voice as a vocal changer. That's how I view it. And by doing that, he was able to trick the opponent into responding to him, not knowing he was responding to him. This allowed him to activate his brainwashing and succeed in what he needed to. It's a fantastic idea, a fantastic concept, and I felt was executed really well too. We'll definitely have to see more of it next week, but I really like that idea. Again, I don't know exactly how the mask works, but if it is what I said, like that's a fantastic idea. And even if it's not, if it's something else, I would love to hear what it is because it's such a great concept. Now, I'm just wondering, like, that's probably not an end all be all, though, because that's still, once the opponents learn about that, they're going to be extra cautious about even that, about even responding to their teammates or partners, or in real life situations. They'll be just more cautious about responding in general. So there's got to be other ways to handle this too. There's got to be more to it as well. But this is still a great touch, a great addition. It works exceptionally well for a situation like this. But it's not perfect. So I'm really curious as to where this is going to go. I'm really curious as to how much more he possibly has in store for using his quirk in battle. But I really like this so far. Like, Shinso was definitely one of the characters I wanted to see return the most. He had so much potential. His character arc we saw throughout his time in the sports festival was great, and just the moment after he lost to Deku and everything and was heading out and everyone started cheering him on and supporting him and everything, it's like that was fantastic. It was just a fantastic moment in this series. Um, and so I'm very excited to see what more they do with him. And I really hope he does end up successfully transferring to the hero course, whichever class he ends up going to. It'll probably be the B class, let's be honest. I feel like it'd be really hard to change the dynamic of the A class at this point because there are main characters So it's probably going to be the B class if he does join the hero course here. Um, that would have to be my guess. But we'll see. We'll see. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. It's possible. It would really change the dynamic of A class, though. I mean, so we'll have to see. But that would have to be my guess. It would just be very hard to integrate him in as well, because everyone else in the class just has this dynamic with each other already. But we'll see. It's possible that Horikoshi could go that way. We'll have to see. But either way, I really do hope he succeeds. He definitely deserves it. And he's showing a lot of great innovation with this mask and other possibilities. So I'm excited. I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed just the possibilities that this episode presented. And I really can't wait to see how this battle concludes and how the next one he's in goes. And heck, if we do end up seeing all the battles, even if we just get like a little like montage of the other ones that don't involve him, I would be great with that too. But either way, tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of My Hero Academia Season 5, and tell me, like, where do you think this is headed? Now, if you've read the manga and everything and know stuff, do not spoil me. Please, no actual spoilers. I do wish to remain as spoiler-free as possible. I do know a couple of things in the future already that I wish I didn't, but please try to keep it spoiler-free. But either way, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, well, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.